ready for part 4. So this is what we're going to be aiming at. I have been playing a little ahead of time to see how things are working out, and I actually love this. So today we're going to work on the detached buttonhole, and then probably I will add in the same video the blanket stitch, which will finish the first layer, this outside layer. One of the things I forgot to say in the previous video is obviously once I finish the couching, I've used a large needle to plunge the ends to the back to tidy up. I really love that color and the way it's turned out. Now, what we're going to use is the Presentia 16, size 16. You will have by now, I think it was, yes, it would have been on the 23rd of December, found a ball of this thread. It is a pearly, but it's a pearly that is thinner than number 12. As far as I know, Presentia is the only brand that actually does a 16. I may be wrong though, but that's the only one I found. I love it, and it's really good. Pearly is really good to do this type of stitches. So to do detached buttonhole, I'm also going to, I also swap my needle. So I'm going to use a blunt needle, and this one is a tapestry size 28, petite. John James does those very small needles that I absolutely love in tapestry needles. They're not a common needle at all, but I love it. I love the short size of it. So I threaded a length of pearl 16, and I am I've did a knot. So I'm gonna start. Let me reset this so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna start at the top here. Doing just a back stitch. Let me get this fabric out of the way. So my back stitch is going to be what's going to support my detached buttonhole, and my stitches are about 3 millimeters apart, if that. This is definitely the sort of stitch that I like to do holding the hoop in my hand. As much as I tend to work with both my hands, one underneath, one on top, for detached buttonhole, it makes sense to have it in your hand, and actually it makes it easier to work almost at an angle more than flat, like the other stitches I'm doing. So I want this back stitch to be quite firm, so that it takes the weight and the tension of the detached buttonhole. Back stitch done. I like to work the detached buttonhole from the left to the right. Because I'm right-handed, it makes it easier. That said, you can reverse the direction very easily as well, so that's not really a problem. But I'm gonna go back up here, just inside it. From now on, until the end of the row, I'm gonna stay on the surface. Then I'm gonna plunge it back at the end of the row, come back up, do the next row. There is an option to work back and forth if you prefer. I didn't test the other way, to be honest, but it made sense to me. So I'm going under the back stitch and through the loop to create my first detached buttonhole. What I'm going to do is place 1 stitch per back stitch, because I'm going to go all the way around, and as we work subsequent row, I don't want this first row to have too many stitches, otherwise it's going to get crowded. Underneath with my finger, I'm actually pushing the fabric a little to make sure I can grab my needle easily. And as you notice, I'm not making my detached buttonhole too tight, because obviously I need to see them and grab them in the next row. Now that I reach the end of the row, I'm gonna plunge my needle to the back. I am trying to leave a gap so that it doesn't get too crowded around the edges. Everything with detached buttonhole is a question of tension, so keep that in mind. And then I'm going back to the other side, again a little bit away from the previous row so I have the space. I grab the loop of the previous buttonhole and carry on. I'm going to carry on filling this shape, and then I'll show you what I do near the end, basically, to keep it in shape and fix it to the surface so it doesn't move. I've now got enough stitching to fix some of it, so some of it here is enough. It will put it a bit under tension, but that's what I want. Here I may need a little bit like of a partial row, but let's see what happens. So I'm fixing this row here, then I'm going back to the other side, and I just catch the last loop, the loop of the previous row, and just attach it in place. So basically come up, catch the loop, go back down. And I do that for every stitch. Actually, I will need a partial row. There's enough give in the lace. And that's it, done. So I repeat that in every petal, and then we'll move on to the blanket stitch. All done with the detached buttonhole. Now we're going to use the cryonic braid to do the blanket stitch around. So one of the ways to work with those threads is to do a method to attach them to the needle called half hitching. So what you do is that you take both the ends of the thread and a larger eye needle, so that's an embroidery needle size 7. Thread both through the eye of the needle. If I was going to use a double thread to do this, I would just pass these both ends through the loop and then tie a knot. But because I'm only going to use a single thread in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to block one of the hold on to one of the ends as I pull the other one through. Still form a loop and pass both ends through. And pull. The reason I use this method is because when you're stitching with this type of metallic thread, half of the problem, well, 90% of the problem comes from the wear and tear on the eye of the needle. By doing this technique, the needle is fixed and the thread in the eye of the needle is fixed, meaning that you will most likely, will be less likely actually, to wear off the thread and end up in trouble. And I put a knot at the other end. Come on, here we go. Now to start this blanket stitch, I want it very nice and equal on both sides. So I want this nice straight one that comes right to the tip. So rather than trying to come from one end and then turning the angle, it's actually easier to start from the middle, go on one side and then the other side. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm coming up right in the tip, and first thing I'm going to do is a detached open chain stitch. So I'm coming back down about 3 millimeters away from where I came up, leave a loop at the top, come up through the loop and pull. So that's a detached open chain stitch that I'm going to start my blanket stitch with. Now come down about 3 millimeters away and back up through the loop and pull. And I'm going to repeat that until I reach the other end. I'm doing it in this direction because I want this bit of the blanket stitch to do like a nice edge to tidy up the edge of the detached buttonhole we did earlier. I'm trying to be mindful of the angles I'm using. Sorry for knocking the camera off. So that it is nice and pleasing by reducing the distance at the bottom, basically. I'm just going to fix that by doing a tiny straight stitch right to the end. That's it, one side down. So let's zoom in so I can show you. So to come back up to do the other side, I'm going to come up in this first stitch that we did, this open daisy stitch. I'm coming inside of it, and then I do the same thing on the other side now, starting the blanket stitch again. Gonna have to change my thread, so I'm gonna stop my blanket stitch here at the bottom, hide my stopping stitch inside this border, this outline I've been creating, and start a new thread. Same thing, I come back up inside the previous blanket stitch so I can make the change of thread absolutely seamless. Gonna need 2 stitches here to get to the end. That's okay. Here we go, one done. I'm gonna repeat, and then that's our outline layer done.